So I have 45 minutes to share some really life-changing information. And it's life-changing because the mouth-body connection is really a powerful one. And we can talk about detox, we can talk about nutrition, we could talk about toxicities, but you can't do any of that without dealing with what's going on in your mouth. The crazy thing about that is that we're really all over the map in terms of what people or what your dentist is telling you to do and what you can tell your patients and your clients to do. So I want to bring some sanity. I have done 20 years of research on the oral microbiome. As a matter of fact, it's one of the reasons why I wrote the book, The Mouth-Body Connection. This comes out in 2 weeks. You can get it on Amazon or Barnes & Noble. This book talks about the science of the oral microbiome. It talks about the mouth-body connection in a very understandable way. It was really written for a layperson, not the professional. So the mouth is a mirror for what's going on in the body. I mean, you could just look in the middle there, diabetes, leukemia, syphilis, Down syndrome, bulimia. I mean, we see this all the time. We know the mouth is a mirror for what's going on in the body. As a matter of fact, over 85% of infectious diseases have signs and symptoms in the mouth. But we also know that your mouth, as we know, anybody practice Chinese medicine here? Chinese medicine. We know how important the tongue is, right? Really, Eastern medicine has looked at the tongue, and it's very, very interesting. Just fissures in the tongue. Anybody ever think that's connected to psoriasis? We all know that the white creamy patch on the tongue is candidiasis, but did you know that the black and hairy tongue, which is a fungal overgrowth, that is really also, anybody rinse with peroxide here? Well, if you do that for 1 to 2 weeks, you will have a condition known as black and hairy tongue. That is not good for social etiquette. I don't think my wife would want to kiss me if I had black hairy tongue. So the mouth is a gateway. It's a gateway for disease, and that mouth-body connection is related to everything from Alzheimer's to colorectal cancer. So just this month, Journal of the American Medical Association, rheumatoid arthritis, they actually identified the bacterium from the mouth and the antibody protein that triggers rheumatoid arthritis. So we see all of these conditions, everything from stroke, heart disease, fatal coronary heart disease, major pregnancy complications, both preterm birth, so premature low-weight baby, PLWB, and preeclampsia, very dangerous blood pressure condition, and pregnant women, 700%. Stroke is really higher than that, and heart attack is actually much higher than these statistics in there that we're finding. So bottom line, I got that gorilla, the orangutan, to brush with Revitin. But you cannot detoxify the body without a healthy mouth. I'm going to show you how to get there. Because we hear about all kinds of things. So in detoxing, having an oral component to this is essential. Because as you're going through removing the source, a big part of that source is in the mouth. As a matter of fact, the mouth is the body's #1 source of chronic low-grade inflammation. And it was even on the cover of Time magazine. So let's talk about dental dangers. I have 6 dental dangers. Numero uno, gum disease. And as I said, the progression of gum disease from a healthy teeth and gums to gingivitis, which is basically the first stage of inflammation. Early periodontitis is when we start to see the alveolar bone around the teeth, we get all of these breakdown. There is a whole sequential breakdown, which I will talk to you about in a moment. I'm going to show you the 4 mechanisms that gum disease causes systemic illness. There's really 4 pathways. But the 3 alarming statistics are, and I got called into question about this on a conference recently, but the National Institute of Craniofacial Research estimates that over 80%, if you go to the Colgate Toothpaste website, they say over 80% of adults in America have gum disease. That's what we call epidemic. And what's interesting is that I graduated dental school in 1983, and gum disease was epidemic. It was over 80% then. And here we are all these years later, and that statistic has not changed. And I'll tell you why. I mean, we'll get into this in just a little bit. But the link between gum disease and systemic illness is now very well established. And past approaches, antibiotics and antimicrobials, including whether you're using Triclosan, which is a horrible, horrible chemical that's in the #1 leading tube of toothpaste. We're going to talk about that. Colgate Total, Triclosan, and tea tree oil work the same. Tea tree oil is a powerful antimicrobial. Time magazine was one of the first to come out and say, in this secret killer of inflammation, where is this inflammation coming? So we know that inflammation is a natural process in the body of resolving a foreign body infection. However, chronic low-grade inflammation is different than getting a splinter in your finger that resolves that. Chronic low-grade inflammation is the type of inflammation like a silent alarm bell going off that's not being answered. And this is how these stealth infections can lead to cancer. And it's interesting, the change from inflammation to cancer. And we're seeing that connection. So what are the 4 pathways, the 4 mechanisms and pathways? #1, we have direct invasion of oral infectious pathogens. So the Journal of Oral Microbiology, March 2017, the #1 bacteria they found in plaques in arteries, in coronary artery disease, was Porphyromonas gingivalis, a dental disease pathogen. And the second pathway is the inflammatory response. So these bacteria infiltrate the circulatory system, triggers the liver to release C-reactive proteins, and we know this has all kinds of inflammatory effects on the entire circulatory system. Then there's these inflammatory effects and what it does to vascular integrity. So it makes really our vessels permeable. And finally, and this is the most interesting, is these gene polymorphisms. These switching on interleukin genes and how they become pro-inflammatory as well. So these are the 4 pathways that gum disease really triggers this inflammatory cascade, 4 different ways. So this is the Journal of Oral Microbiology. Porphyromonas gingivalis, the most abundant species in coronary and femoral arteries. And then another article here about this change in autoimmune reactivity, chronic exposure to oral pathogens. And then, of course, preterm labor. I mean, it's just crazy. There are OBGYNs out there telling patients not to get any dental work during pregnancy. Really, you should get a periodontal cleaning once a trimester because there is a condition known as pregnancy gingivitis. Gums get inflamed. You see this kind of condition right here. This is a complete periodontal blowout. In the old days, there was an old wives' tale that the reason why women lose teeth in childbearing years is the baby robs the mother's calcium. And that is a complete wives' tale. It is pregnancy gingivitis and the onset of periodontal disease, especially during pregnancy, which is why women, 700% chance of having a premature low-weight baby. 700% chance of developing preeclampsia with periodontal disease, gum disease. So how do we get from this really nice neighborhood to this, which is basically what happens, right? I remember growing up, my dad took me to the part of Brooklyn he grew up, and you have these very nice brownstones, and they look like this in the 1960s. And it's all about the terrain. The same bacteria that cause tooth decay and gum disease are benign and even beneficial in a balanced environment when the environment is like this. What happened here? Environmental conditions, economic policies, failed economic policies, failed environmental conditions. You go from a pretty neighborhood to a ghetto. And that ghetto is right in your mouth. And that ghetto is connected to the rest of your body, which is why this is such an essential part of true cellular detox, dealing with what's going on in the mouth. So how does this progression happen? It's all about the terrain, right? This stuff that we used to scrape off of teeth, this is a microbiome. We used to call it a biofilm. 2002, Josh Lederberg, microbiologist, coined the term microbiome. Microbiome's only been around since 2002, and that is a much nicer term than biofilm, actually. But what is this made of? 700 species, 6 to 10 billion microbes. When it's out of balance, it looks like this. Thick, smelly, sticky film on your teeth in the morning. When this film is in balance, what we call microbial homeostasis, it's a whole different ballgame. And that is a clear, thin, odorless film. So this area here, even in a healthy environment, these bacteria do amazing things. They take ionic calcium and phosphorus from saliva to repair your teeth and remineralize your teeth. It takes oxygen and brings it to the gums. It takes ionic oxygen. Free radicals takes it away. And I'm going to tell you all about that in a little more detail. So we know we're made up of microbes, right? And as a matter of fact, slimy microbes carpeted the earth 3.2 billion years ago. Slimy microbes. The earth was covered with microbes before man even existed. And it's interesting, there's a verse in the Bible about how and God took from the dust of the earth and breathed his spirit into it. Actually, there's a more accurate text in the Hebrew Torah that says, and the Lord formed man from the slime of the earth and breathed into his face the breath of life, his spirit, and man became a living soul. I love that picture. It's kind of interesting. We are made, you want to get that? We are made of microbes. And we look at a bacterium, and that bacterium is not much different than in the shape of a mitochondrium with DNA. Even bacterial reproduction and mitochondrial reproduction. All of our human cells. Really fascinating. The Human Microbiome Project is being called the Copernican Revolution. Copernicus said the earth isn't the center of the universe, we revolve around the sun. This Copernican revolution has redefined what it means for us to be human. So it's changing everything. What we use, the kinds of things we take, how we take care of ourselves, what we brush our teeth with. The oral microbiome, essential, 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 essential. Essential for life, protection against harmful environmental pathogens. It's an essential component of mammalian digestion, essential component of salivary immune system regulation. And the whole point of this entire talk is about balance. Balance is the, oops, sorry about that. Balance is, I was trying to hit the pointer, right in the middle here. This is the sweet spot. And what does that look like on this graph? Don't be scared by this. But this is something you could take a picture of. So we have a target. The center of the target is that homeostasis. The wider the target is, the greater the balance. So we really want a stronger host resistance to stay in balance. And I'm going to tell you how to get to the center of the target. So that sticky white stuff that was in that picture of the tooth with scraping that white stuff off the teeth, that's a hypertrophic biofilm. That's a thick, sticky, smelly film on your teeth in the morning. That's what you get with your microbiome out of balance. Every night you brush your teeth and you get this detergent stuff, stick it in your mouth. We put fluoride, thought that was a good idea in the 1950s. We'll talk about fluoride. That's one of my dental dangers. And then what did we do? In the 1970s, we started to put bug killers in. And what we kept doing is repeating this cycle. Hypertrophic, back, out of balance, hypertrophic, scrub it off. Not really. And at the same time, gum disease remains epidemic. What about atrophic biofilm? So here you go from a scary jungle full of all kinds of critters to an atrophic biofilm, which is like a desert. So that's the people that do coconut oil pulling over and over and over and over and over. And activated charcoal has become a thing. Dirt toothpaste. How many use dirt? Dirt, activated charcoal. It's really, I'm getting to you, right? This is stuff that really scours the mouth. So really, if you use activated charcoal, it's so strong in the mouth. Brushing your teeth with activated charcoal is not what you want to do, besides the fact that it's abrasive. But you end up with an atrophic biofilm. So what happens? The acid-base reactions are mostly tooth things. So when you got a grungy mouth, you get tooth decay when you're in a hypertrophic. But the opposite extent is the root and tooth sensitivity. So these are, who gets atrophic biofilms? People on chemotherapy and radiation. People, smokers. Smokers are very atrophic. Gums, you usually get gum disease. And when you use those antimicrobials that nuke everything, the napalm in the mouth, the scorched earth policy, kill plaque, kill bacteria, kill all the bacteria. Bacteria are bad, they're the enemy. We're made of bacteria. How are they the enemy? Bacteria keep us alive. So people that really do a great job of nuking everything in the mouth usually end up with ulcers and burning mouth, root and tooth sensitivity. So that's why we want to be here. What is this? This is beautiful aerobic, mostly aerobic bacteria. When it's out of balance, that's when you get this, and that's when you get this inflammatory response down here. So this is, you see those spirochetes and all that. These bacteria live in the mouth. Gum disease does not come from bacteria flying into your mouth setting up shop. There are bacteria that do set up shop in cavitations. We've even seen Lyme spirochetes in cavitations. We're going to talk about that. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about resident bacteria that go out of balance, flip a pathogenic switch, and they become harmful. So one of them, I'll tell you, Fusobacterium nucleatum, one of the biggest thugs in the mouth. Porphyromonas gingivalis. They live in the mouth. They, H. pylori live in your stomach, everyone. And when you have bad diet, stress, hypersecretion of hydrochloric acid, you get an overgrowth of H. pylori, you get an ulcer. Staph aureus live on your skin, staph infection. lives on your skin. How do you get a staph infection? It's when they overgrow, they flip a pathogenic switch. Pneumococcus bacteria live in your lungs. What happens? Your immune system is run down. You're not taking care of it. You got bacterial pneumonia. The pneumococcus bacteria live in your lungs. They didn't fly in. So it's important to understand that disease happens by resident bacteria that flip a pathogenic switch. Bacteria like us, in a healthy society, we all just get along. In an unhealthy society, we have gangs and riots and all kinds of things. Bacteria live in communities like us. So what do we have here? We have this microbiome controlling the balance of molecular oxygen and ionic oxygen. Again, bacteria in an unbalanced microbiome actually secrete what we call radical or ionic oxygen, and that pokes holes in cell membranes. You have this inflammatory cascade. And what else does the microbiome do? I love this part. These bacteria live in your mouth, and they're a storehouse of minerals and ions that keeps your enamel hard and really regulating the pH in your mouth. So this is very important to understand. This is revolutionary because we used to think we needed fluoride. Not only is fluoride toxic, but the mineral it makes is weaker than your natural hydroxyapatite, which is what your teeth and bones are made of, has a certain flexibility. Fluorapatite is hard and it's brittle and it has 40% less shear strength than hydroxyapatite. So fluoride does not make your teeth and bones stronger. The 1980s, they did studies on hip fracture rates, the orthopedists. They said, well, if fluoride's making teeth strong, it's got to make the bones strong. They found an exact increase in hip fracture rates, an exponential increase in hip fracture rates. So the microbiome keeps your teeth strong. The microbiome, the bacteria, 700 species, 6 to 10 billion in number. They do nutrient collection, waste removal, collective survival. Okay? If the microbiome becomes unbalanced, that's when you see this happening, which I've already shared with you. This is a good slide to take a picture of because it shows you the transformation from a healthy mouth to an unhealthy mouth. And that's where that inflammation comes in. And that's what has ravaging effects throughout the body. Fusobacterium nucleatum. This is a community bacteria that flips that pathogenic switch. So we have a change of assumptions, everyone, from this to this. Roundup, don't we love Roundup, right? Probably one of the most insidious chemicals ever developed by our friends at Monsanto. So what I'm really promoting is organic gardening in the mouth. Let's talk about danger number 2. Mercury, mercury, mercury. What's all the fuss? Well, when I was in dental school, they told us that the mercury was magically locked in, that, it doesn't come out, and 46% of dentists still putting mercury fillings in. The biggest problem is the majority of the 54% that are not removing mercury safely. So where does the greatest amount of mercury come from? Seafood? No, that's over here in the blue. Vaccines? Wow, we could spend days talking about the vaccine industry. And anybody who talks about creating safe vaccine is labeled as anti-vax, which the more I study this issue, the more I become anti-vaccine in total rather than just promoting vaccine safety. But vaccine safety, 1 in 6 kids on the autism spectrum, we have a real problem. But trace amounts of mercury in vaccines is so damaging to the developing brain and nervous system in babies and children. But dental amalgam fillings still take top billing. And 90% of the world's mercury waste comes from dental offices. That's the World Health Organization. So I went on Dr. Oz, and we did this piece on toxic teeth. And Dr. Oz started this. The American Dental Association sent a newsletter to every dentist telling patients that amalgams are safe. And they even had one line that said, if you have any amalgams in your own mouth, show them to your patient. So if you're an idiot, you can show them, that you're... And they actually had that in the newsletter. Why? The American Dental Association was founded by pro-mercury dentists right after the Civil War. They had the original patent on dental amalgam. And they've had a very close relationship with the FDA. And I can go on and on about that. Needless to say, mercury fillings release toxic gas. This is a video called The Smoking Gun. It's on YouTube. They used a miner's black light to show an extracted molar with a mercury filling and the mercury gas coming off. I was a producer on this movie. You could also find this, Evidence of Harm. Very, very good documentary on the dental amalgam issue. So, if we look at mercury poisoning and Alzheimer's disease, the symptoms are exactly the same. Exactly the same. And what is it? One person is diagnosed with Alzheimer's every minute in America? Or every 30 seconds, something like that. The statistics for Alzheimer's is extraordinary. So I'm a SMART certified dentist. This means that I use a protective protocol. I don't wear these masks. I thanked 3M. They came out with a surgical mask that has a heavy metal vaporizer, respirator. Heavy metal respirator that we don't have to wear these anymore. But we do gown up and we protect our patients. We put oxygen on the patient. We isolate. And where is Catherine Aniston? Is she here? There she is. She came out with a great product. Every one of my patients leaves with her detox, dental detox, chlorella. We use Bind where's Dr. Shane Morris and Dr. Pompa. Bind is one of the greatest products for scavenging mercury. Great, great product. So here we have before and after. Those sure look a lot better. And another favorite, this is like my favorite Thomas the Train bottle. It's a little bottle, but it is really a very intelligent scavenger. So hydrolyzed canophthalite, it's a tongue tire, really good for removing dangerous toxins like mercury. Great, great product. So let's talk about root canal. Number 3, we're up to 3 of 6. How am I doing on time? We're okay. Right on, there it is. Great. All right, let's talk about root canals, right? Big bad root canals. How does a root canal make you sick? Well, when I was in dental school, we thought, like, you do a root canal, you save the tooth. Well, what do we define saving the tooth? Keeping it in the patient's head? This is a giant cavitation. Cavitation. This is what root canal fillings look like on a dental x-ray. Right over there. So these two guys, Bob Kulas is a dentist, and Tom Levy, cardiologist and a lawyer. They wrote this book, The Toxic Tooth. It's a good book. Bob actually graduated dental school at NYU the year after me. We were both presidents of our class. And Bob got attacked by the ADA for promoting unethical dentistry and had his license taken away for bad-mouthing root canal. But now, with cone beam and all kinds of diagnostic tests, we cannot deny that root canals the porosity of the dentin. So this is the premise behind root canal. You have a tooth with decay and infection, a decaying tooth, you get an abscess over here. You do a root canal, and then magically, this is supposed to disappear. Au contraire. Au contraire. Here are some really well. This is a root canal with a broken instrument in it. Yep. You haven't done enough root canals. If any dentist hasn't experienced this, they haven't done enough root canals. But root canal is flawed for a lot of reasons. The reason it's flawed is because you see this part of the tooth, there's an enamel of the tooth on the top that's been fluoridated and now brittle, very, very dense, very, very brittle. That's the enamel. That's what we did to the enamel. The dentin of the tooth is porous. Hundreds of thousands of tubules that make it porous. So when you get an infection like this, those bacteria aren't just in the middle of the tooth. They're in all these tubules. How do you sterilize this tooth? And that's the premise. The premise of root canal is the tooth is sterilized, and then you hermetically seal it with this inert rubbery material called gutta percha. The problem is you're sealing bacteria in these tubules. And those bacteria do some pretty nasty things. By the way, this is all an infection right there. So if you want to see what it looks like, is basically this doesn't magically go away. This infection stays, often forms a cyst. This is an extracted root canal tooth. This is fortunate. This is a cyst. A lot of times this is just loose, sometimes this is loose granulomatous tissue that just sends infection all over the place. What's interesting, we started looking at biopsies of these cavitations and scraping debris out, and we're finding really weird Lyme spirochetes harboring in cavitations. So what's the dangers of this? Well, you know, I had a tooth organ chart. I don't have it in this lecture, but whenever I see someone comes to me that has a history of breast cancer, the first thing I look for is a root canal on the maxillary molars and this tooth organ relation. You know, 90% have had a root canal on an upper molar. And it just blew my mind that there could be that connection between each individual tooth and where there's an organ problem. But it's called the tooth-organ relationship, very common in Chinese medicine. Now Western medicine is starting to take a closer look at this. So we see lots of problems. So what do? Do all of you get every root canal in your head ripped out? The answer is, I'm sure many of you sitting here have had root canal therapy at one time or another, save the tooth. I recommend that you get a cone beam, and we'll have questions and answers. Dr. Pompa is going to come up with me as soon as I finish, and we're gonna answer some questions. I know a lot of you have questions. It's always the dentist that gets a ton of questions, you know, because people are at a loss of what to do about this and what to do about that. So I'm just going to, I'm actually writing a protocol right now for root canal teeth. And there is some hope. And it's all about the disinfection. Okay, so I have a protocol about whether you have a chronic abscess. If you have a tooth with an abscess and the dentist says you have an abscess, we're going to do a root canal, definitely tell him, thank you, no thank you. I would recommend that you seek an alternative. All of the literature right now, the dental literature, is showing that extraction, excavation of the cavitation, the abscess, and grafting and replacing that with a zirconia dental implant. Dental implants have had a greater success and a greater track record than root canal. So, and by the way, the cost is just about the same. So If you accidentally have a cavity that exposes the nerve, there is no abscess, and you have a sterile pulp, you can do root canal therapy with the use of the dental laser. Why? Because the penetration into the dentinal tubule of the conventional way of rinsing the canal out with a sodium hypochlorite solution is 100 microns. The penetration with a laser, with a radial firing tip, and I use the Waterlaze 2.0. It's made by a company called BioLaze. Ask your dentist about the Waterlaze 2.0 by BioLaze. That's an erbium chromium YAG laser that does more than one thing. It kills the bacteria. It has a radial firing tip that fires into this whole area, but it also stimulates the mitochondria of the bone to divide. So it regrows bone. It has regenerative capabilities. The other thing it does, the laser ozonates the water. So you have ozone water with the laser light that regenerates bone. Kills bacteria, regenerates bone. So the action of lasers, this is the BioLaze Waterlaze 2.0. You could actually even do a cavity with a laser without the dental drill. So there's lots of advantages. Let's go to number 4, and I've got 2 more to go, and we're done. Fluoride. We all know about fluoride. I know I'm preaching to the choir here for most of you, but the amount of fluoride that people are exposed to, I want you to educate your patients and your clients about the hidden sources of fluoride in Starbucks coffee, or in if they're using tap water, if it's water that has not been filtered to remove a halide like fluoride, it's in everything. Eating in restaurants, food prepared in restaurants. I mean, fluoride is everywhere. And we now have 4 out of 10 children with fluoride damage in America. 4 out of 10 have fluorosis. And the organized dentistry would like to say it's a cosmetic defect. Au contraire. Fluoride, this is mild fluorosis, this is severe fluorosis. By the way, this is the way the teeth look. You can't see what the bones look like, but the bones and the teeth are made of the same thing. Severe fluorosis usually ends up with by the way, 16% of the 41% have severe fluorosis. That's thousands and thousands of children that have been condemned to very expensive restorative dentistry. So the truth about fluoride, I mean, I can go through it. More than 20 studies on how fluoride lowers IQ in children. You know, by the way, the calcification in the pineal gland is extraordinary. They've actually biopsied cadavers exposed to fluoride and the calcification of the pineal gland. Everything from autoimmune, cognitive decline, decrease in bone density and strength. I talked about increased risk of cancer. Hypothyroidism. University of Manchester in the UK. Fluoride causing hypothyroidism, interfering with thyroid function. This is a great documentary for fluoride. It's only 20 minutes. You can get it on YouTube. Our Daily Dose. Great documentary on fluoride. Not going to spend too much more time with that, other than to point out, Flint, Michigan, we do not put fluoride in our water. New York City spends $12 million, I'm working right now, to buy a toxic waste product called hydrofluorosilicic acid. It's so acidic, it leaches. And by the way, that toxic, that comes from aluminum manufacturer, uranium refining. It's also phosphate fertilizer industry. We make a lot of hydrofluorosilicic acid. We also make sarin gas from hydrofluorosilicic acid. It is so toxic, it's not funny, and highly corrosive. Leaching lead out of municipal water supplies. Very, very frightening. And the lead problem, it just came up in New York City schools with New York City water. They found, I forget what percentage of schools, the drinking water in the school with super high lead. Alarming levels of lead. This is, by the way, Fluoride Action Network, FAN, very good consumer protection website on the fluoride issue. We're looking at ways to naturally protect yourself against fluoride toxicity, true cellular detox. We're looking, infrared sauna, far infrared sauna. Tamarind, really good. Fulvic acid, iodine, magnesium's been helpful, vitamin C. This is a good, anyone experiment with this, with detoxing with fluoride? Very good. Let's talk about toothpaste. Dental danger. Dental danger. Why is there a poison warning on toothpaste? Because there's enough fluoride in a full-size tube of toothpaste to kill 2 children under 5. Yes, you heard me. In the 1980s, there was a product called Crest Sparkle. It was bubblegum flavored, fluorescent blue, and it had sparkles. And fluoride fatalities in children went up 280%. Did you hear about that? Well, that's before the internet and social media. If that happened today, but it took 10 years for the FDA to put this poison warning on there. So all products with fluoride has this poison warning. Keep out of reach of children under 6. More than a pea-sized amount is accidentally swallowed. Call poison control right away. By the way, this started me in saying I got to do something. I got to invent a toothpaste. I prayed and prayed and prayed for the wisdom to invent a toothpaste. A toothpaste that was safe and a toothpaste that was effective. What about Triclosan, right? What do we got? So this is a beauty. We got sodium fluoride and Triclosan. Triclosan, #1 brand of toothpaste in America. They knew when they were launching this that Triclosan was not only ineffectual, they wanted to kill plaque. Remember, those were the days still of the scorched earth policy. When I was on the Martha Stewart show, she said, I know you're working on a toothpaste, Dr. Curatola. Tell us about that. I said, Martha, it's time for doctors to get out of the pesticide business. And what I'm promoting is organic gardening for the mouth. And that was the perfect soundbite for Martha. She loved that. But my product wasn't ready yet. I missed a marketing opportunity. Anyway, so the chemical used by Colgate Colgate Turd toothpaste is linked to cancer. Yes, it's linked to cancer. Why? And it was in all of these things. Right guard, antibacterial underarm, antibacterial dial. This is all banned. The FDA last year banned Triclosan and everything but toothpaste. So you can't use it on your hands, but you could stick it in your mouth. I love this. I was on vacation in Italy when I saw this ad in a People magazine, an international People magazine. My routine for a healthier mouth. She's holding Total and everything. Eliminates 15 times more bacteria to improve the health of your mouth. That's false advertising. 15. Yeah, why don't you just kill all the bacteria in your body, Kelly? So, why should you never use Triclosan? Indefinite half-life in human tissue. Known endocrine disruptor. Associated with antibiotic resistance. It increases your resistance to every antibiotic. You're brushing with it every day. Forms carcinogens when exposed to chlorine. Tap water. The Chinese did this one. They found that Triclosan, when you use chlorinated tap water, makes chloroform. Oh, that's beautiful. You never heard that here. Triclosan is strongly linked to human disorders and was recently linked to cardiac and skeletal muscle weakness and disorders. Now, #6, and then we'll get to the good stuff. Sugar alcohols. This, my friends, is not natural. Xylitol is the new methadone for the sugar addicts, which is why DuPont owns 80% of the commercial xylitol under a subsidiary known as Danica. So xylitol is a sugar alcohol. It is made by a hydrogenation process. By the way, this came out of an organic chemistry, right? So they take xylan from birch bark. Actually, 80% of xylitol comes from GMO corn cobs. They found corn cobs is a good source of xylan. Why don't we use the GMO corn cobs? Hydrogenation, you end up with, what is that called? A high-value chemical. It's a high-value chemical. And it could kill your dog. I'm going to answer questions in a minute. I only have a few minutes to go. So natural toothpaste is safe. This was a natural toothpaste with tea tree oil, licorice root, tulsi oil, xylitol, antimicrobial. They said xylitol was good for teeth because it inhibited plaque from sticking to teeth. Destroyed plaque. Why does it cause so much bloating, intestinal gas, and diarrhea? Because it's very disturbing to the microbiome, the gut microbiome and the oral microbiome. So this is what I invented. It is, I encourage you all to take a tube and brush with this for 3 days. Basically, this promotes microbial homeostasis. But the best part is we did our research.
And I research,
use it. Huh?
I said, that's the toothpaste I use.
And actually, just want to show you one thing. We did a lot of studies with this. Gum stopped bleeding 72.5% in 14 days. This is the reduction. So one little story, and I'm done. But is Sean here? Sean Lefebvre. So this guy runs up to me, true story, in Dr. Pompa's last meeting in Las Vegas. And he runs up to me with these papers here. The paper on the left is his periodontal charting done by his dentist that basically puts him on the path to, he has gum disease here. And it puts him on the path to having gum surgery. He even has an 8mm pocket in a few places.
I have that.
Yeah. He uses Revitin for 90 days, and he is almost clean. This has even improved. So this is him at that meeting. But I had him write, I think we did it on toilet paper, permission to use this. I'm not HIPAA violation. There's no HIPAA violation. But anyway, you had another report. What was that?
Yeah, so I just went and got a cleaning, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and even those numbers have improved since. You know, I carried these two pieces of paper around in a month for my car because I knew I was going to see Dr. Curatola, and I did. I was like, you got to see this. You got to see this. I was so excited because, you know, we were talking about this at Vegas. You know, what's that book, Man's Search for Meaning? You know, Viktor Frankl. Yeah. And one of the things he talked about in there was, you know, they had no access to dental care yet. They all had excellent oral health. And I'm thinking, if an Auschwitz survivor can have good teeth without dental floss, so can I. I hate flossing my teeth. I've been looking for something. Seriously.
They were fasting.
You know what? But I'm still using that as an excuse. And
that was the difference.
When I saw Revitin, I said, that's it. And I did nothing different.
Well,
but
yeah, and the interesting thing is if you have patients who are on cancer treatment, and they're unfortunately chemotherapy. Major condition with cancer treatment is oral mucositis and burning tongue, burning mouth. And it's all because of that atrophic biofilm that I just taught you about, that atrophic biofilm. So when you restore homeostasis, the mouth heals. Our bodies have an amazing ability to heal, and that's what this is. There's no magic. Revitin is filled with things that just help the body heal, and you could literally put it on a cracker and eat it.
Yeah, we've eaten a tube. Gerry and I shared a tube one day. Remember, it's systemic. We just kept eating it.
It's great for keto breath, by the way. Very good. But thank you very much, and thank you, Sean.
So before we take questions, I'll tell you a story, right? So I had massive pockets, right, just from my Mercury that destroyed, and I knew this early on. And that time I was like, it'll just fix. You know, I kind of had the Viktor Frankl thing. It'll go away, right? Well, it didn't. As a matter of fact, I was using a lot of toothpaste with killers in it, natural. I mean, I wasn't using regular toothpaste. I mean, like peppermint oils and tea tree oils, because I was still like, you know, trying to kill it, I guess, you know. But anyways, it really was making things worse. It definitely wasn't allowing it to heal. My microbiome was being affected. Long story short, so I go to Gerry. I mean, he fixed my mouth. That's Gerry,
He looks
man.
good,
yeah,
doesn't he?
He really did.
Let's hear it for Dr.
'cause it was-
Pompa.
this was Invisalign. I mean, he did so much work. I mean, I had veneers here because I had so much distortion
you don't
up
have
here. But I don't care. I want to tell him because, I mean, I was losing my teeth, literally. Wasn't I?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
He
I
was
didn't have a
actually,
choice. This
his
was like,
periodontal condition was accelerating, and you were on kind of like that runaway train.
Right. So, I mean, this was not by choice. I mean, there was stuff that I had to, I had 3 major surgeries in here, and this just happened. It was part of what filled my bucket, by the way. So many toxins released. So anyways, he goes in and he starts cleaning with that laser some of these massive pockets, right? Because when they go in, and it's surgery, they go in there and they go in to stimulate that bone growth and they get all the bacteria out. So I had this wisdom tooth, partial impaction right back here. And he goes in there and boom, it just falls through. He's like, Dan, you have massive infection in here, massive cavitation. I can't believe your gut's not wrecked. I mean, that's how much infection there was. Remember I said if you're not getting someone well, there's a hidden stressor.
Exactly.
Right? I wasn't expressing because obviously I do a lot of good things. Eventually it'll wore me down, trust me. It would have wore me down. But he goes in, so he's like, we got to take the wisdom tooth. Oh, God. Takes the wisdom tooth out. Okay, that went fine. The laser, took it out with a laser. Here's the interesting part of the story. So the next day, I'm okay here. I all of a sudden have this massive pain up here. He didn't touch up here.
Yeah.
He called me, how you doing, Dan? And I'm like, dude, I have pain up here on the top left. I didn't touch anything up there. I'm like, no, I know. I said, man, it's unbelievable. We both of us had some theories, whatever. Okay, no, I could touch where it was. My theory was, I have a stinking cavitation up there. And I told my wife that. I said, I'll tell you what happened, because I know these bacteria. The bacteria ran from here, and that's how smart they are. They relocated up in that safe zone, and that's exactly what happened.
Focal infections in the mouth can travel from site to site. And what's interesting is that, we're talking about stressors. One of the biggest stressors, I mean, Time Magazine had it on the cover. The biggest stressor, the greatest source of inflammation, ravaging inflammation, is in your mouth.
70 to 85% of disease starts here. So when your patients aren't getting well and you look for hidden stressors, I'm telling you, look here. So I go into the hygienist first because she was doing a deep cleaning before I saw Gerry to basically surgery the other pockets with the laser. I tell her, I'll tell you right where this pain is. I think I have a cavitation. Tell Gerry I want a cone beam x-ray. I tell her right where it is. Okay, I see that. So she's cleaning it. She says, you have pus coming out of there. You might be right. I'm going to make Gerry go in there with that laser. Come into Gerry's room. Gerry goes in, boom, another stinking pocket. I mean, infection in there. I'm telling you, the man added years to my life. I mean, honestly, he made my teeth straight and all that stuff fine and good. But I'm telling you,
the other day I was doing some. Thank you, Dan. The other day I was doing. I do a lot of aesthetic dentistry as well. That's why I call it rejuvenation dentistry, because it's aesthetic and biologic aesthetic.
He was a sculptor
beauty and wellness.
Before
but
he was
I am an Italian artist. I actually I sing. But I was so I said to this woman, I said, if I fix your smile, I'll take 10 years off your life. And she's like, I don't want you to take 10 years off my life. I meant to say 10 years younger. And I said, dude, 10 years off her life.
Well, I can do that. I promise.
I said, no, 10 years younger.
He literally did sing with Billy Joel on stage, by the way. That's a true story, right? And him and I, if we get together, we sing some Frank Sinatra every once in a while. And here's the thing. If you're in Gerry's chair, and if Gerry stops singing, there's something wrong. Seriously, I
stopped singing with you.
Yeah, right. And he gets quiet. And I'm like, oh, shit. It's like he's not singing. When he's singing, things are going really well, right? I'm telling you, man, he saved my teeth.
Thank you.
He added years to my life. And that is true, man, because I'm telling you, if I had them, imagine. But, you saw the studies. I knew that I wanted Gerry to fix those pockets after I saw that research. I'm a 3%er, man. I'm like, dude, I'll fix my mouth, and you did.
Yeah, the interesting thing is this study was done in Italy because we had to stay away from the FDA. The first one was actually, this was a 7-day study. Here's Revitin And here are the studies that Colgate Total sent. This is after 1 week Revitin. This is 12 weeks of Colgate Total. They weren't even there. And this, we actually start to see things happen in reverse. But I think, what might be good is to open up some questions.
Yeah, let's
I'm
do
sure
that.
there's a lot of questions.
Let's line them up at the mic.
First question, I got two quickly. With children, just wondering about ages, if they have all their teeth before the other ones come in, should we be worried about it? When should we think about getting them checked by a holistic dentist, that kind of thing?
Well, your child's first checkup, and there's a lot of with children, it's even socialization. There's a beautiful baby here, and even that baby should be checked because, believe it or not, there are eruption problems. What we worry about with children is that there's adequate or proper facial growth. And if there isn't proper, Weston Price was amazing in talking about that. I didn't really get into talking about Weston Price, but to me, he's my hero. He was so far ahead of his time, and he's really the Charles Darwin of nutrition. But in looking at facial anomalies and developmental problems, 2 years old, first, that's really a reasonable time for a child to be checked. 7 years old for orthodontic or developmental difficulties. Believe it or not, guiding proper eruption and guiding proper growth is a very important part of preventative dentistry for children.
Okay. Second question, just on your site, I've seen a lot, you say developer of a number of products, including mouthwashes and stuff, but I only see Revitin Orange right now. Or when's the other stuff coming?
We have 3 flavors coming. We have actually a gentle mint. Now, I talked a lot about mint, peppermint and tea tree oil. These very powerful essential oils are very antimicrobial. Peppermint is very antimicrobial. So we stayed away from mint for a long time, but we have something called a gentle mint. And the gentle mint is, you'll be very pleasantly surprised. It actually has almost like a cocoa mint type of thing. We have a cucumber flavor. We have a cinnamon flavor. And we have a bubblegum, a natural bubblegum flavor, which your child could eat the whole tube, and it's a dietary supplement. So.
And the mouthwashes, I heard they were coming.
Yeah, the mouth rinse is on its way. Another thing that I have. I envisioned Revitin to be to have a Revitin cleanse, which is the toothpaste, Revitin condition, which is a mouth rinse, and then Revitin protect. And we have like a Banaka type spray, a lip balm, a spot gel. But by the way, you can use Revitin in many different ways. You can actually rub it if you have a problem area in your mouth, put it on that area before you go to bed and just leave it on. It has great absorption. It's one of the things that we did is we didn't just take toothpaste and throw vitamins in it. We re-engineered the entire thing. It took 4 years just to get it to act like a toothpaste. But yeah, don't worry, citrus it's not like Henry Ford that said you can have any colored car as long as it's black.
So sorry, go ahead.
Any issues with permanent retainers?
Permanent retainers?
They're metal.
Yes.
The metals?
Yes.
The metal retainer? I'm not a fan of those.
Okay.
That's the lazy man's retainer. A lot of times with teenagers who are very non-compliant, the orthodontist places this metal wire behind the teeth. A, the wire's stainless steel.
Yeah.
B, it traps a tremendous amount of food and bacteria that can't be cleansed. Now, when I say bacteria, when you have food stuck in your mouth, it creates a culture for there to be growth of bacteria. And even though that bacteria may not be pathogenic at that point, they don't flip the pathogenic switch. They do calcify, and that becomes tartar and calculus, which actually helps to harbor and create an imbalance in the oral microbiome.
And I'll tell you, metal in the mouth, more and more studies are showing it disrupts the brain. Metal, there's a current, there's an acid here. And when you have opposing metals, 2 different metals, like I had at one point, I had amalgam fillings in, and then I had, other metal in my mouth, gold actually, that they put in. I had galvanism, and basically it's a battery effect, which causes the mercury to pour out of those fillings. I get many clients who have that bar, and then they have 1 filling left And it's like they can't sleep through the night until they get that dang metal out. So disruptive, no doubt.
And there's a lot of better alternatives to that.
Let's take
Clear
one more.
retainers, they're called the Vera retainers. Yes.
So you mentioned not to use xylitol, but what about erythritol? Because that's always promoted in the ketogenic diet.
Worse.
Okay, so all those ketogenic
Worse.
cookbooks that are like
Erythritol.
Stevia extract, I'm telling you. It's the best.
Stevia extract. Okay, so here's the deal with xylitol. Very disturbing. It's not metabolized or absorbed. Erythritol is a little more insidious, which is why we see esophageal cancer. It's now been linked to esophageal cancer because it gets absorbed but not metabolized. So it's absorbed into the body. Now, I almost prefer xylitol. You'll get gas and diarrhea and all that. Very disturbing to the microbiome in the mouth and in the gut. They said it was good for you because it keeps plaque from sticking to teeth. But remember, that oral microbiome, when it's in balance, actually remineralizes your teeth. You don't want to disturb it. You want to keep it healthy. But erythritol, which you brought up, and I'm glad you brought that up, is absorbed but not metabolized. So we get a lot of, people get a lot of gastric reflux, and it's been linked to, there's been now a link to esophageal cancer. It also kills fruit flies,
Remember,
which has a lot of our DNA.
I was one that promoted xylitol. But we've, think about it. They promote it for killing bacteria in the mouth, right? That's why the gum, right, that kills bacteria. So going with that philosophy, you can see why it would be harmful.
Last question.
I have a daughter that's about to turn 17, and she started having jaw pain, so I just took her in to get the x-ray done, and he said her wisdom teeth are impacted. So I'm assuming that it has to be done, though if so, we go through with this. Is there anything I can do pre or post that surgery to help her not have issues?
Sure. Impacted, well, the first thing is if they are impacted and the jaw has not developed to accommodate those teeth. I just consulted with someone in South Africa. I did a Skype consult. He actually has a squamous cell carcinoma from an over-impacted wisdom tooth that had a giant cavitation, a giant infection that actually became cancerous. Very, very scary. So getting the wisdom teeth out between 17 and 21 years old, I would definitely try and find a biologic dentist who's going to make sure, because all teeth form in a developmental sac. And that sac basically disintegrates. As the tooth cuts through, that sac absorbs, and there's a lot of theory
So one of the things Gerry and
Resveratrol.
one of the things that Gerry and I do a lot together is we're Italians. We drink a lot
cheers.
of wine.
Good health.
Salute.
Salute.
Ginnan.
Gendani. So my advice would be definitely making sure that developmental sac around the wisdom tooth is cleaned out, or that will be a cavitation.